Hey there, and welcome to a new episode of the Dietitian Success Podcast, the business and marketing podcast for registered dietitians. If you are new here, I am your host, Krista Kolajesic. I'm the founder of Dietitian Success Center. If you are new to us and you've never heard of Dietitian Success Center before, make sure you come and join our free dietitian community. It is really bumping in there. We started the community at the end of January, and it's already at over 1,600 members, which is really cool. So it's a great place to be able to ask questions, to be able to network with other dietitians. And so if you're a student, you're welcome to. So just pop on over to dietitiansuccesscenter.com and join our free DSC starter kit. All right. So today's podcast episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about what it is really like running some sort of an online program, whether that is, and I want to start by defining what that means for a second. So an online program, I would say, includes online courses. It includes membership sites. It may include group programs where there's some sort of an online component where people are maybe watching through some material, and then you have live Q&A sessions every week, but there's an online course component that they access. Maybe there's other materials like a resource library or a meal planning library that they access. And so there's that automated component. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I think that this is something, having some sort of like a scalable online course, a membership, something that doesn't require you to exchange your time for money, is thought of as being this like, or can be rather, a really amazing way to be able to grow and scale a dietitian business. And we're seeing dietitians all over the place doing really interesting and innovative and creative things that are really outside the box when it comes to client or patient care and don't necessarily require you to work one-on-one with people. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the online course or membership or sort of scalable business model. And I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the realities involved in adding that to your business or in growing that side of your business, because it's such an interesting way of offering a service. It's such an interesting way of selling something in your business that is going to feel completely different than working with people one-on-one, especially if you are used to working with people one-on-one. And I would say it's a totally different way of thinking about your business and thinking about what you offer, and it challenges your mindset in a whole bunch of different ways. And so I want to talk through that a little bit, some of the sort of real behind the scenes of what it looks like to run a membership or an online course or an online program. I want to talk a little bit about the really great things, the hard things, the amazing things, the struggles, because of course, all of those things can exist at the same time. And it can also still be a really great thing for you to add to your business or for you to grow in your business. If you have maybe an online program of some sort and you're thinking to yourself, well, I haven't really figured out how to grow this or scale this, that's okay. That's something that we can talk about today too. There will be some lessons in this episode for you too. And so if you are joining us in the live stream of this podcast episode in the DSC community, feel free to post any questions that you have in the chat and I will address them throughout or at the end, just depending on the question. And if you are watching this live, just know that the episode, the podcast episode, will be posted to all of the podcasting platforms on Thursday. All right. So what is the first behind the scenes, what it's really like running a membership or an online program what is the first sort of challenge that will come up? And this is a conversation actually I had with a dietitian recently this week or last week rather, who has just transitioned from one-on-one coaching to a group program where she has an online course component of the program. So participants are watching online course videos every week, and then they meet once a week for a live Q&A session. And then there's also a community forum as well where people can post questions. Now, this is a very common structure and format for a group program. But we had this really interesting conversation, and it reminded me of exactly how I've always felt when I've launched any sort of a new online scalable offer that is not one-on-one. And it is this feeling of you will always be worried that you are not doing enough, because it's a very strange experience when you transition from offering a service that is so time and resource intensive, and so much of your mental space goes towards, is dedicated to helping this person and working with this person. You are like so involved in their story and perhaps in their, week to week life. And then suddenly, when you're offering some sort of a scalable program where people are purchasing a membership or an online course or a group program, suddenly you are completely disconnected from that. And, you've created this thing that is an amazing asset and it's so valuable. And perhaps it's a course that people walk through and there's so much amazing information in there. But there will still be this feeling that exists of, okay, people get access to that, but that's not enough, even though it is enough. It is absolutely enough. But it's almost this feeling of detachment that can feel really, really uncomfortable. It's sort of like this, I need to be more involved with this person than I am right now because that's what I'm used to. And I think that there's often some self-management that needs to be done there, and a little bit of sort of self-coaching that needs to be done there, of recognizing that you have created this thing, and this thing is such a valuable resource. It is a collection of all of your thoughts, opinions, research, practice experience on this topic. And it is okay for you to sell that asset. You don't have to be directly involved in that person's experience in order for them to have a good experience. And so there will be these feelings of like, oh, and I think sometimes it comes from almost a place of control, right? It's like, oh, but I need to get in there. I want to get in there. I want to get into the weeds with this person. I want to make sure that it's really solving their problem. And when we start to get into more scalable business models and we start to think about, well, how do I expand and grow beyond exchanging my direct time for money? Well, then this is part of that, right? Part of that is, how do I then package my expertise into something that can be bigger and better and more scalable and can reach more people when I don't have the time to reach all of those people? I couldn't possibly work with all of those people one-on-one. And so it's definitely a mindset shift that has to happen of like, it is okay for you to sell this asset that does not require you to be involved. And it's going to feel a little uncomfortable at first. And I think that the solution to this is often time, and having enough people go through a program and provide you with positive feedback and positive testimonials to say, oh, okay, I don't have to be directly involved in a one-on-one capacity in order for people to get a certain result and to get value. And I think that's really where the magic starts to happen, when you realize the potential and the power of having a scalable offer and being able to take your intellectual property your expertise and package that up. It's pretty incredible that we could do that as dietitians. But just as a forewarning, you will have this feeling. It will feel very uncomfortable. And it's so funny because, and if you've never sold something, some sort of a scalable offer before, there will probably undoubtedly be this experience where you have your first person purchase and then you think to yourself, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You get this purchase and you're like, oh my gosh, it feels so good to be making money this way. And then it will almost be this crash of like, oh gosh, dread. What happens if it's not good enough? If they don't get enough out of this? If it's not enough, right? And there's this high low that is probably going to happen. And that's okay. It's completely normal. And again, because you're not like sitting with that person and hand holding them through the process, you are relying on them going through that material on their own and participating and interacting in that course or in that program in whatever way they see fit. That can feel really hard when you don't have that sense of control. But that's okay. It's part of the process. It's part of growing as an entrepreneur and shifting your mindset and being okay with that level of uncertainty. Now, on that note, I think the other thing that is really important to realize and also not feel bad about if you offer some sort of an online course or a membership or a program is that you have to let people be people. And what I mean by that is that you will get people who purchase your program, purchase your course, purchase your membership, and they never participate. They don't take the course. They don't participate in the group sessions. They don't participate in the community or any degree of participating or not participating in any of those things. So perhaps, they watch the first course video and then they just come to the live sessions. And that is not a failure on your behalf. Now, of course, there are always things that we can do to ensure that people feel like it is a space where they can show up and they want to show up and they want to take the course and they want to participate. But it's so important for us to remember that though our program, our course, our membership is so top of mind for us and it's so important for us, it is only one of the hundreds of things that our clients or our members or our customers are dealing with and worried about and thinking about in their day-to-day life. Chances are it is not the only thing that they have going on. And so you got to let people be people, and you have to let them participate in whatever way makes sense for them. And they will decide what way makes sense for them. And so, for example, this could look like somebody purchasing and then maybe participating for the first week or so, and then they maybe drop off, but perhaps they're going to come back at some point and they're going to take the rest of the course. They just had something come up. I've even done this too, where I have purchased courses and I've purchased them for the specific purpose of watching a certain component of that course and learning about that very specific thing that I need. And then I don't take the rest of the course. And that's okay. I still got a lot of value out of that, but I didn't need to take the entire thing. So you may get people that do that too. And that's okay. It's super, super normal. And I would say it's actually more common for people to not participate in all of the things than to participate in all of the things. I think sometimes we have this expectation of like, okay, well, if somebody pays for this, then they're going to come to all the sessions and they're going to take the entire course and they're going to use all the resources. And they just don't. That's the reality of the situation. And that's okay. People are allowed to participate in whatever way that they want to. Now, again, there are certain things that we can do to ensure that we're setting our people up for success. And, we're making it easy for them to show up and to participate, but it won't always happen. And there's really not much that you can do about that. You have to, again, release control. So I think that, running a membership or running an online course is can be a big exercise in releasing control. And on that note, too, as many of us identify with being perfectionists, it will be uncomfortable when you get your first refund request, and that will happen. So your program will not be for everyone. Your course, your membership, your whatever it is will not be for everyone. And that is okay. That is okay. Part of the learning experience in creating an online course or a membership is learning who is the ideal person for this course, this program, or this membership, and who is not the ideal person. And sometimes that is a learning curve that just naturally has to happen. And sometimes the way that happens is that people that are not the right fit for a program purchase a program, they start to take it, they realize, oh, this is not the right fit for me, and they ask for a refund. And that's okay. That then means that you just have to get more clear when it comes to your sales and marketing messaging, who this program is for and also who it is not for. So one of the things that I really like to do on a sales page, and I always recommend, is to actually have a section on your sales page that is dedicated to who this program is for and who it is not for. And I think sometimes people, see that and they think immediately, oh, but then you're turning away people. That's good. You should be turning away the wrong people. You want to make sure that this program is as successful as possible, and it cannot be successful for every single type of person. And so we have to be very clear on those sorts of pieces. So whether that is specific, medical criteria, perhaps that somebody should meet or should not meet, maybe that is certain, characteristics. So if somebody is looking for a lot of one-on-one support and that's not what you offer through this program, be super clear on that. Say, if you are somebody who really needs and is looking for very, close one-on-one hand-holding type support, this is not the program for you. And again, that's totally okay. It is up to you to define what you offer in your program and what you don't, and be super clear about who it is for and who it is not for. So refund requests are a normal part of the process, and it is okay. It doesn't mean that you failed. It doesn't mean that you're a terrible business owner. It doesn't mean that people hate you. It just means that we got to get more clear in terms of communicating who this is for and who it's not for. And by the way, even if you are super clear on all of those things, you will still get people that don't read any of the content on your sales page and decide to purchase and realize it's not for them. And that's okay too. That will happen. Again, it's not a reflection on you. That's just what it's like to run some sort of an online program. Now, the other thing that is probably going to happen if you have some sort of an online course, program, membership, is you will constantly feel like you need to add more or change things. That is just I think it's a trait of, it can be a trait of people who have perfectionist tendencies, right? It's this desire to always want to be better and to do more and to over deliver. And what ends up happening, and I've seen this happen many times, is, somebody creates an online course and then they maybe run it once or they run a group program once, and then they have this desire to change everything and to go back and say, no, that wasn't good enough. I learned so much. I need to change this. I need to update it. I need to I need to burn it all to the ground and I need to rebuild it. And it's so important for us to be objective about that. And so, if there are certain things, certain components that you learn would be really, really valuable for people to have, or let's say that you run this program the first time and you get a ton of questions about one very specific thing. And you think to yourself, well, if I only had a video module on that specific thing, then I could add that to the course and then I wouldn't get these questions. Okay, that is a very valid reason to add more material to your program. But you don't necessarily have to if you just feel, if it's coming from that place of, I feel like this isn't enough, but you have absolutely no evidence to support that. Right? So people loved the program, they went through the course, they had a great experience, they enjoyed it, you got great testimonials, you have people referring their friends to you. That is a clear indication that you do not need to burn this to the ground and you do not need to create it from scratch. You created something amazing. So just let it be amazing. And don't put, more work into rebuilding a thing that's already working. Because we just need to let it work, right? This is a thing that you created and it's supposed to be scalable. Let it be scalable. Take yourself away from it. Detach yourself from it and just let it be that scalable offer that you can use to bring more money into your business. And by the way, it's not going to be perfect. And it was funny, I was listening to a podcast this morning, and it was a business podcast, and the host was talking to someone who is an author, and she was talking about how hard it is to be an author when you have something published and it's like a hard copy published item and you can never change it unless you update it, unless you run a draft 2 or volume 2 or whatever. But that can be such a difficult experience because as you grow, as you mature, as you learn, what you created 3 years ago is going to feel less relevant to you. And it's going to feel like you were not as good then and you want to create something better. And I think what's so cool about online programs is that you have the opportunity to do that, but we also need to resist the urge to do that all the time because chances are you don't need to. And so again, just one of those mindset shifts that has to happen. By the way, if you're joining us live, please feel free to post in the chat if you have any questions as I'm talking about any of this material. More than happy to address any questions. Okay, and then the other piece when it comes to that I want to talk about when it comes to running some sort of a scalable business model like a membership or an online course is that you will probably underestimate the audience size that you need in order for this thing to consistently sell and consistently be successful. So I like to talk about this a lot in the podcast because I've seen this happen so many times where dietitians go to create some sort of a program, course, ebook, whatever that looks like, membership, and they go to sell it and maybe they have one sale or zero and they think it's a complete failure and a complete flop. And I think it's so important to remember how important audience size is when it comes to selling some sort of a scalable product. And so I always like to use the metric around when we're thinking. So oftentimes what we use to sell some sort of a product or an offer is an email list, right? We have an email list of people and we're able to send marketing emails to our email list and promote our program, promote our course. Now, average conversion rates for an email list are 1 to 4%, 4% being very, very high. So what that means is that if you were to launch something to 100 people who are very, very, interested in what you have to say, they are engaged, they're interested, it's a group of your ideal client, you can expect that anywhere from 1 to 4 of those people may purchase. Probably it's going to be 1. It's probably going to be on the lower end. And so I think that's just such an important reminder that in order to get consistency with sales and in order to get really meaningful sales, we have to consider audience size. Now, there's always going to be caveats to this. So, for example, I've seen scenarios where, these conversion rates can be way higher if it is a dietitian that spent a lot of time building a very engaged audience. So, for example, was chatting with somebody recently who has a podcast. And so she has very loyal podcast listeners and has been growing the email list based on the podcast and has basically just been nurturing over the weeks, over the months to this audience. And then when she went to finally launch a program, the conversion rates were so much higher. And that's because these people had built a relationship with her already. She had spent so much time nurturing and building trust with these people that when she went to sell something, they were ready. They were like, yeah, I want what you're selling because I have so much trust in you. You've given me so much free information that has been incredibly valuable to me. So these, I introduce these conversion rates always with a grain of salt because it can be, it can vary depending on the situation. Now, of course, as well, the really interesting thing is that an audience doesn't have to just be an email list either. So if you are somebody, and I was having this conversation with an amazing dietitian yesterday who is incredibly, has in the past always relied on in-person connections and in-person marketing. So building connections in her community, relying on referrals, relying on word of mouth. And she was like, well, I don't think I can. I've never done social media. Like, I don't know how to be successful with an online program because I've never done social media. It was like, well, no, you can totally sell an online program using the exact same tactics as you did before, building connections in your community and using those connections as a way to get people into your email list. So you have the opportunity to talk to them about your online program. It doesn't really matter where you are sourcing people to come into your world, but the whole point is that we're finding those people somewhere. And so, community or audience doesn't have to just be social media or email list. It can be people that you are connected to. You can totally fill a program based on just connections. I've seen that happen before. Okay, a question in the chat. Do you recommend testing an online course first? And if yes, how do you do that? Yes, I definitely recommend testing. And so essentially what this looks like logistically is doing some sort of a beta round, a beta test or a beta round where we basically come up with the concept for this course. So let's say you come up with an idea for this course and you come up with a title, you come up with the learning outcomes, you come up with a structure for the lessons and for the modules, and you put together a sales page. And then you can actually create the first couple modules if you want to. You don't even need to. You put together the first couple modules and you basically send that out to your audience and you say, is anybody interested in participating in my pilot or in my beta test of this program that I'm offering? And essentially how that works is you offer it at a steep discount, probably anywhere from 50% of what you would normally be selling it for, because we want to get people into this beta test. And so we want to incentivize them to participate in this beta. And so you offer it for a steep discount. And as people then purchase and you tell them, okay, by the way, the entire course is not done yet, but when you purchase, you will get access to the first 2 weeks, first couple lessons, whatever that looks like. And then every week moving forward, I will release new lessons to you. So you make sure that they are fully aware of that before participating in the beta. And then the reason why we do this is because this helps us validate that people actually want this thing before we go through the process of creating the entire thing. Because what we don't want is we don't want to have created this entire course and then put it out to our people and realize nobody wanted it, right? And so it can make dietitians feel really uncomfortable to actually sell something that's not fully done yet, but that's okay. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. Create those first couple lessons. And then trust yourself that you will continue to release lessons week to week if you get beta people involved. And if you don't get anybody involved, then that can be a really clear indication that, oh, okay, maybe it's just a tweak that needs to be made. Maybe my title needs to be different. Maybe my learning objectives need to be different. It may not mean that you need to trash the whole idea. It could just be a simple tweak. Maybe you need to get way more clear about what the outcome is and who the ideal client is. So yeah, I totally recommend testing. I think it's a very smart thing to do. Another thing you can do as well, which I've seen work, is you can also do a waitlist approach too. So let's say that you put together, again, all of the elements of what this course is going to be. So the title, the tagline, the learning outcomes, who it's right for, who it's not right for. And then I always recommend including pricing on a waitlist so that the people that are joining your waitlist are fully aware of the price. Pricing, and then you say, join the waitlist, and you send that out to your people too. And that can also be a really good way. You can start a waitlist without having created that program, but you're starting that waitlist, getting a sense of whether people are actually interested in this thing. If people are joining your waitlist, well, that means that they're interested in buying this thing whenever it comes out. And so that can be a really good way to gauge interest too. Let me know if there's any follow-up questions on that, but it's a fantastic question. So thank you for asking that. Another question in the chat is, what are the signs from a community or email list that it's the right time to launch a program? Yeah. So size of an email list, number of connections, is there even a right time? Yeah, it's such a good question. So what we can do is we can actually work backwards from that math that we were talking about before. So when I said, a 1 to 4% conversion rate, and we can ask ourselves, okay, well, what is my goal for this course or this program? How many people do I want to enroll when I go to launch it? And let's say that my goal is, 5. Let's say I want 5 people. Okay, well, 5 is 1% of what number? I'm not gonna, having to do math live is just like the most stressful thing for me. And so you just do that mental math in your head, right? That's is that 500 people? 500 people? 5 is 1% of 500, right? And so that means your audience probably needs to be about 500 people-ish, if we're being conservative. And so we can actually work through that math on our own. And that can give us a good gauge, how many people do we need to have in our audience in order to go and launch that thing? But again, there's no hard and fast rules here either. If you are somebody who has a very engaged network, maybe you've had a podcast for a while, and again, you have people that are tuning in to listen every week and you just haven't started an email list yet, then you could go to start that email list and probably get a way more engaged audience and need less people in order to fill a program. But let me know if that makes sense. Let me know if there's any follow-up questions on that as well. But I like to use that. That math equation as a little bit more of an objective measure. To say, okay, when could be the right time? Okay, another question. You might have covered this earlier, but do you have feedback about practitioners using Practice Better for group programs? No, it's a great question. Yeah, thank you so much for asking this. I'm interested if anybody in who's joining us right now has experience with this that wants to comment in the chat. I can read out your answer. But I think one of the challenges that I have heard from practitioners is that programs like EMR platforms like Practice Better are amazing for the one-on-one piece and can be great for group sessions, but a lot of times their community component is just not necessarily set up in the ways some of these other platforms are to really facilitate engagement. So for example, with our website platform that we use, it's really built around like memberships, online courses. And so because of that, they have specific things in place to help us get people engaged. So for example, this right now, when I'm live streaming this podcast, like this is not something that would be offered in most other platforms. Or if you are part of this community, you get an email every Thursday that has a summary of any of the new conversations that have happened in the community forum. And again, this is something that brings people into the community and invites engagement. So I have seen that as a challenge that dietitians have said it is really hard to have a community component when you are using an EMR like Practice Better. Now, this may change. I know they're always updating their programs, etc. But if community is something you're really looking to build, you may need to pursue or you may need to look into other tech platforms. But, I think it can be a good option if you have, if you're just looking to offer an online course to your people and you're just looking to do it in a really simple way and keep it all under one roof instead of having your one-on-one clients go to multiple places to access your material. I know a lot of practitioners do use the online course feature of Practice Better. Yeah. Okay. And then we had a comment in the chat here. I have personal experience and I enjoyed it because I had a program with an online course, one-on-one and group sessions. So it worked well for me to house all info in there. I wasn't looking to build community at the time though. Okay, so that's speaking to Practice Better. So yeah, I think that I think it can be definitely a viable option for sure. It just kind of depends on what you need and what you're looking for. Okay. All right, let me go back to my notes and just see if there's anything else. Okay, and then the last one that I want to talk about actually is with regard to pricing. And it is that one of the biggest tendencies I feel like people have when they go to launch some sort of an online course or online program or membership or ebook or whatever that looks like is that they think that pricing cheaply will be a way to get more customers. And I think what's so important to recognize is that price always does reflect value. And when we price cheap, we are communicating that the product is cheap. And also, that doesn't necessarily translate to more people, more sales, more revenue for your business. And so, that can be, and I hear this often from dietitians. We're like, well, what if I just, had a tab on my website that was dedicated towards selling ebooks for like $7 or $10. And it's kind of this feeling of like, oh, well, I'll get a lot of sales from that and I'll be able to reach my financial goals. And it just doesn't, from what I've seen, it just doesn't work that way. You are so much better off putting your time, energy, and resources into marketing something that is priced appropriately for the value that you provide and finding the right customers who want to purchase that program and see value in that price point. And that is going to be so much more sustainable for you. It's going to feel so much better for you. It's going to help you achieve your financial goals. And you're probably going to, in your very first version of whatever you release, you're probably going to underprice. And then you're going to quickly realize how long it will take you to meet your financial goals by selling something that is $27. And you'll quickly realize, okay, maybe I need to rethink this approach. Maybe I need to do something different. And that's okay. That's also part of just the business building process. And that's usually just a journey that we all have to go through, is recognizing that having a low price point is not always the best approach. Okay, feel free to ask any other questions in the chat as I wrap up here. We did get a question in the chat about pricing to give online consultations. Feel free to ask that in the community, since it's a bit of a departure from the topic we're talking about today, because it sounds like this is a little bit more of a one-on-one. So how do you, do one-on-one? How do you price one-on-one services? So feel free to ask that in the Dietitian Success Center community, and we can totally provide you with some support and feedback there. But otherwise, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Again, you can listen to the recording posted as a podcast episode this Thursday. Just subscribe to the Dietitian Success Podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we release a new episode every Thursday. And if you haven't already, make sure and join our free DSC starter kit. If you are listening to this podcast episode and you're not part of our world yet, and you're thinking, hey, it'd be really cool to join one of these podcast recordings live, well, you can do that, and you can do it for free. Just join our DSC community through our starter kit. The link to join that is in the description of this episode. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. It has been lovely to have you and to answer some of these amazing questions. I love the questions that we get because it helps to give everyone more context and more detail. There's always details that I won't think of or I won't answer when it comes to recording these episodes. And so having your questions just adds another layer of depth to these conversations. So thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you have an awesome week, and we will see you in the next episode.